What's up everybody, my name is Phil and welcome to Miranda Detailing, where we make satisfying detailing videos. In today's video, we are working on this 2015 Lexus RCF. We're doing a paint enhancement and a ceramic coating using Carpro CQuartzUK Edition 3.0. So guys, this vehicle is beautiful. Jet black paint. It definitely has its fair share of defects, swirls, and hazing and light scratches and all sorts of stuff. So this isn't going to be a full paint correction. The customer wants it to look its best, but since it is not quite a daily driver, but his only vehicle that he uses for transportation, then we decided to go with the paint enhancement instead of the paint correction. It would be nice to go full paint correction because you would get 90% of the defects and it would take care of a lot of other heavier defects on here. But again, I go more for paint preservation, and paint corrections I really reserve for cars that are going to be garaged or going to shows, or they're garage queens, something like that. For daily drivers, I rarely go full paint correction. If the customer wants to pay for it and wants to go for it, great. But usually it's not really needed because the car is going to be outdoors, it's going to be washed on a regular basis. That's simply going to induce more marks over time. The paint enhancement is the sweet spot because you're polishing it, you're getting out defects, but you're not dishing out hundreds of dollars to be able to go for full paint correction when you really don't need to. So we're going to start with our wash process outside. So let's pull it out, bring it into the sun, and see what it looks like.
So looking at the vehicle before it is even cleaned in direct sunlight, you can really see how bad the paint is. It's swirled, it's hazy, it doesn't have the reflection that it really should. Now we're really going to focus on the paint here. This is going to receive a paint enhancement, not a full paint correction, but a paint enhancement to reduce those defects and to really bring out the gloss and the clarity in the paint. Now I'm going to talk about these headlights later. They look really nice, but when they start to fade and fail, and they will, they're going to be difficult to work on. So we begin with our degreasing and rinsing stage. So I'm using super clean diluted 1:4, and I make sure to hit all the nasty engine compartment parts and the wheels and the tires first, and any of the grungy parts on the paint. And then I make sure to rinse everything, and this really starts the cleaning process. So now I begin rinsing everything thoroughly. Now after everything has had a full rinse and an APC rinse, I foam the vehicle down. Now I'm using Chemical Guy's Citrus Washing Gloss, which is one of my go-to shampoos right now. Even though I have a bunch of other ones, I continue to use this one because I love how the soap works. It's very slick and it cleans really well, and it produces a ton of foam. So now as the foam is on the vehicle, it's breaking down dirt and grime, and I begin the wash process right away using mitts and using brushes to get into all the crevices. Now you notice here that my wife is also using the clay mitt for all of the top surfaces. So the top surfaces were not as bad as the bottom, so you'll see what we use for the bottom areas. So on to the wheels. Yes, I know, some guys like to clean their wheels first, but when my wife and I are working together, we clean the main part of the vehicle and then we get to the wheels. So I'm using AM wheels as the cleaner and a variety of wheel brushes to get into those spokes and the wheel barrels. Now I know I do have my head cam on and I thought I was recording footage, but again, the battery runs out on that thing so quickly that it didn't get any footage, so I apologize for that. So after everything is fully rinsed, we dry the paint with a nice plush drying towel. So the one here shown, I have links down below. It's from the Rag Company, and it is an amazing towel to dry. You can see how it just sucked up the water off that panel. Now, it wasn't shown here, but we also used our little blower to blow dry the engine compartment and all of the crevices and cracks in the paint. So now I'm using AM Dress to dress the engine, and I love this dressing. It smells great and it produces a nice satin finish. Now, I use it generously on all the plastic parts in the engine compartment, and after the vehicle's been running for a while, this dressing, or really any dressing, will kind of melt into all the plastics, and you just need to go in there and wipe away any of the excess. So now with everything fully dried, I'm going to clay bar some of the bottom areas of the paint that needed more attention. So it wasn't horrible, but it definitely needed a clay bar service down on the bottom portions to remove any of the remaining gunk that was left on the paint.
So the vehicle has been washed, it's been clay barred, it's been dried and blown dry. The engine compartment is cleaned and dressed, so we're going to wipe that down a little bit if it needs to kind of even out the dressing later. But what we're going to do is address the door jamb. So there's no interior work on this vehicle, but I do want to address the door jamb. So I'm going to be using Geon Cure. So this is their silica sealant, perfect for areas like this. In fact, you can use it under the hood on the painted parts and use it in the door jambs and the trunk lid area as well. So just take a nice clean microfiber towel. Make sure to shake the product up really, really well and apply a few spritz on the towel. This acts as a drying aid and adds protection to your painted surfaces in the door jambs. This can go right over the plastic parts too, not a big deal. Okay, now with that finished, much better finish. When the customer opens the door, all the door jambs are clean and looking great. So the vehicle is pulled into the garage. It's been cleaned, clayed, dried. Now we can see, oh, wow, that's bad. Yikes. So it does have a clear bra here, PPF film. So we're gonna do a light polish on that. Yeah, it has some other deeper scratches here. That doesn't look too deep. But some other marks around the paint. I mean, overall, the glossiness is not horrible, but yeah, it can certainly be improved upon. So the one-step polish will really improve the paint. It'll get rid of any of those hazy little lines and stuff like that. It'll get those removed. It will remove those and really improve the paint. So pretty much all of it looks like this. So yeah, wow, that's pretty bad too. And it does have some water spots like that, which we will remove, and some other marks on the paint like that, whatever that is. Looks like it's probably just a water spot though. You can tell the paint is just not as good as it should be. So what we're going to use today is D300 for heavier stuff, but do a one-step polish with Carpro Essence. If we need to bump it up a little bit more, we will. But let's see how this does with a medium cut foam pad. The orange Lake Country pads is what we'll use on our Roops 15. And let's do a test spot. So that's what I'll start with. Let's do a little 2-foot square panel here. So that's with just a couple of passes, slow arm movement, and it really improves the paint. Help it to get focused here. There we go. So from this hazy mess to now looking much, much better. Now we're going to see if we can clear this up a little bit more. Again, it's not a paint correction, so I try not to go too crazy because it isn't a paint correction, but let's see if we can clear it up just a little bit more. It's good that the camera's not focusing on it because it doesn't have a lot of the heavy swirls to focus on like it does here. So here it focuses on them because of so much of the refracted light, but here it kind of loses focus because it's getting much, much better. So let's see what we can do, maybe go a little bit further. You can already see a huge improvement from here to here. Huge, right? That's what we're shooting for. Alright, so we had to go just a little bit heavier. We did like 1 or 2 hits with the microfiber pad and D300, and it cleared it up a little bit more, but I'm not going any further than this because, again, it's a paint enhancement, and under these bright lights it shows up a lot of defects, but in the sunlight these aren't going to be as noticeable. There's some big ones here. There's some long scratches that are a little bit deeper that, you know, for the paint enhancement, I really can't dig those out. But again, I'm not going to attack those. This is going to really improve the paint. It already has. It's improved it dramatically from what it was. And in some areas, I will go a little further, like for bug etching and things like that. But that's about it. So now it's looking really, really nice, very, very glossy. So we're going to move on and do the rest of the car. So here's an area we're done with about half the hood in the front area here because most of it is PPF film, so I'm just lightly going over that. But here's an area where we're going to have to go a little heavier. Oh man. So we have some water spots here that aren't just dripping from when we washed it. This is actually hard water spots, or a hard water stream that went down the hood, and we're gonna have to cut it a little heavier to get that out because that's horrendous. And then you have all these other horizontal scratches going across here. Not sure from what, but we'll see when we compound those. So I am gonna go heavier on that. Heavier on that spot too. I think that is just a water spot, but it looks pretty. It still looks pretty pretty deep. It still looks, yeah, it's definitely etched in there. I can feel it. So let's attack this with microfiber cutting pad and D300. Okay, now that worked. That worked to attack the heavy water spot there and those heavier scratch marks. You can see they're there on this side, but as we pan over, it's looking much better. See if we can get a better angle with the light. Yeah, oh yeah, much better. So what you see is just hazing from the compound, which we'll polish out, but that long streaky water spot is gone, and the heavier marks going across here are gone. You're left with some of the minor scratches here. So yeah, that long water spot is gone. What you see is just the compound haze. We're going to hit this area as we work into this area. That's really bad, but yeah, much improved from that to that. So we'll polish this out as we go along. Okay, so this whole area is cut somewhat. I'm not going heavy cut. I'm not going, again, I'm not going full paint correction. I'm just trying to get heavy stuff out. What you see is just marring from the compounding. But what I was aiming for is getting out all those heavy marks here and the water spots, and they're gone. So what you're left is just minor swirls. I know they look worse on camera than they do not on camera, but it's just because high-powered lights make everything show up on the paint. We're going to polish this out and then take a look at it, because you can see the little movement. That's just from the compounding haze. So that can kind of be like holograms, but holograms are really more from a rotary polisher, but that's just DA haze, it's called, from the compounding step. If I was to go further, the paint would be much clearer without, light swirls, but you'd still have that haziness that needs to be polished out. I know this is kind of an underrated compound, but I use the correction compound, D300 from Meguiar's, on the cutting pad, the Meguiar's cutting disc, and it works really, really well. That's basically what I use for all of my paint corrections. If I need to step it up, I do have some heavier compounds in my cupboard, but usually that will get it. If I was to go more aggressive, I could get all that stuff out. Pretty much get all of it out. There might be some longer, bigger scratches that I won't chase, because you don't want to go too far. You want to preserve paint. So enough talking. Let's polish this out. All right, so after the polishing, much better. Again, you're left with light stuff, but man, it clears up all that ugly hazing and water streaking and spotting and all that. Looks really, really nice now. Yep, and all the little DA haze, all that movement, gone. It's all cleared up. Looks really, really nice. All right, so that's what we're shooting for. Hopefully the rest of the car isn't as bad. I'm thinking probably the roof probably has some heavier marks. Looks like right here, you can kind of already see these marks going this way. Kind of comes up in the camera. I'll get the lights on it in a moment. Yeah, so, okay, so we have some swirls and some haziness in the paint, but not heavy marks. There are some marks here, but that should come right out. All right, so that's not bad. Some other marks around a little antenna here. That could just be, that's just residue. That's not bad. Okay, good, so that'll clear up. Then we head over to the back here, Then we head over to the back here. Yeah, this will probably need to be hit a little bit extra because it's really bad around the edge here. And then we have like the little pop-up spoiler. I think these are just, yeah, that's just drying water spots. Or they may actually be, they might actually be some light scratching. We'll see when we get into that. So that might need to be compounded a little heavier. Ugh, that's really bad. Maybe a buffer was there at some point. So that's our goal, is to make all of the paint like this look like that. Minor imperfections in it, but overall amazing clarity. Let's continue. All right, we're making our way around the driver's side. So driver's side door is done. The fender, I didn't get to the little parts, so like the mirror here and some other small parts I'm going to get to with the 3-inch over there. The whole roof is done. So looking pretty good. Not as hazy as it was before. Looking much clearer and glossier. So yeah, looking really nice. So now we're on to this back fender, and I thought these were just water spots from washing, but they're not. They're slightly etched into the paint. Yeah, right there. So let's see how the one step can remove that or improve it. And if not, we're going to have to step it up to D300, hit it a couple of times, and then we'll polish it. But I don't want that to remain because it looks horrible. And these little areas I'll have to hit by hand with like a little applicator, like I did under the door handle. I just hit it with an applicator like this under the door handle. So these small areas will also need to be hit by hand. So really nice job of removing those water spots. Really glossed up the paint. Again, we're just left with some minor defects. I'm going to hit the area around here a little bit more because I actually have to start from this line here and work over, but I just wanted to hit this spot first to show you. But it removed those water spots and heavier scratches, so we're left with some lighter defects. But yeah, that's just with using Carpro Essence on the orange pad. So I'll probably hit this area a little bit more to see if I can get those to be reduced a little bit more. But again, the angle of the lights and everything just kind of cast a harsh light on it, and it really makes it pop. So again, in the sun, you won't notice that as much. So let's continue with this section and moving around. Okay, so, I mean, much improved, right? From that, that's hideous, it's really, really bad, to that. So yeah, the light picks up the little deeper swirls around it and little light scratches, but you don't have that crazy, crazy swirling like you do here. I'll hit it another time, make it look a little bit better, but remember, paint enhancement, not paint correction. We're taking paint that looks like this to that. Much, much better. So I'll hit it another time and then I'll move on. Alright, so I went a little extra and compounded a little bit more than I would have usually for paint enhancement. But even still, there are some deeper defects in there that I don't want to chase out. They're just so deep. But man, so much better. Huge difference from what it used to be. And again, on camera with these high-powered lights, you still see some of those defects, but in reality, you barely see them. Awesome. All right, so this is going to be pretty intricate here. We're going to get the 3-inch polisher to polish all around, and it goes even all the way down here. This is all painted down here. So let's hit that next. So here's a little tip. I don't use these for coatings. I use the microfiber applicators. They're much more efficient and I like the way that they apply. I don't like the way that these little micro suedes apply. Just my personal opinion. So I have a bunch of these from Geon, from Carpro. I forget, I bought another pack of them and I have a bunch of them. So they're just sitting here. So here's an idea. Toothpick. Wrap it. Now I can use it for emblem, toothpick, wax and polish removal, or little cracks and crevices and things like that. It doesn't poke through, it's nice and strong, and it's also nice and soft. So yeah, that's what I started using now. Toothpick and micro suede applicator for wax emblem removal and all that stuff, and crevices and all those things. So it works really, really well. So you can even get in here in the little door jamb, get all the wax and polish out, good to go. So you can work it around the little emblems. The toothpick allows you to get into the tight areas, while the micro suede is nice and strong and the toothpick doesn't poke through it at all. But it gives it a little bit more strength, a little bit of a point to work with around these emblems. Works really well. Same goes for this emblem here, because I noticed there was some old wax or polish residue around this side. So I basically just work all around the emblem, and you can flip the little micro suede towel around and get into all little tight areas around it. Really nice. You get into all these little cracks and crevices. Just run it through, because it'll pick up junk along in there. So, yep, if you have a bunch of these and you don't like them, don't throw them away. Repurpose them for toothpick, polish, and wax removal. All right, the vehicle is now polished, and it's looking amazing. The wheels we're going to work on in a minute, but all of the paint has been polished now. We're going to go ahead and dress the trim up. We're going to clean all the glass, and then we're going to do a light IPA wipe down with Carpro eraser, just to get any residual top oils off of the Carpro Essence, which really this is designed as the primer base, but I still go just a light IPA wipe down with the Carpro eraser, just to make sure that the surface is nice and squeaky clean. And then we will lay down the CQuartzUK Edition 3.0, and then it will sit overnight. And guys, check out these lights. So yeah, Lexus is designing these lights a little funky. There's a lot of curves, there's a lot going on here. They do look nice. I have to say that they look cool, but man, these are going to be really tough when they do start to oxidize, which they will over time. There's no doubt about it. They will over time. And then you have to deal with this little curve in here. It's tight all the way to the bottom here, and this is painted. And by the way, this is all PPF filmed. So it's PPF filmed to about there. There's the line, and the whole front bumper is filmed, and it, you know, it does show a little bit of the film cracking and peeling. Not cracking, but just peeling up a little bit around the edges. So we had to really tread carefully around that. I just spot polished all around the bumper. The coating will go right over that, no problem. And this is all painted also, so we'll get a little applicator and we'll coat every single little grill piece. Now this in here, I tried to pull back, but no, I noticed that it was pushed in a little bit, but I really don't want to mess with that. It came like that, so I tried to pull it and click it into its little spacers here, but I couldn't quite do it, so I don't want to mess with it. I'll just simply leave it. It came like that, I'm going to leave it like that. All right, so let's continue with the rest of the process. So I'm going to use Carpro Eraser on all of the trim, just to remove any gunk on the trim, get it ready for the dressing. It just ensures that everything is cleaned off of it and preps it, gets it ready. And I might as well do the same thing with the glass, just because it's a good strong cleaner and doesn't hurt to hit the glass with it to make sure that everything is clean. I'm going to put a glass coating on the windshield also. we're going to be using Dr. Beasley's Glass IQ for the windshield coating. Very easy coating to apply. You basically spray it onto the glass itself. And just with straight line application, you spread it. You can go up and down and cross hatch if you want, but it will start to disappear. It'll just melt away into the glass. No streaks, very easy. That's it. So I'll do the same thing on the driver's side. You can see that it's applying over the entire surface. Pretty easy, very easy application. And man, it really does just evaporate away. If you want to flip your towel and kind of hand polish it out, you can. Becomes very slick. Really easy to apply. So let that sit. And I'll put another application in like 10 minutes. So I'll also hit the sunroof while I'm here. And the back glass. So I found an easier way to apply dressings and protectants onto the rubber and plastic windshield cowl. Today I'm going to be using lithium trim serum and this little brush. So what I do is I apply just a little bit onto the brush and I work it into these tight areas. I can use precision around the paint. A little might get on the paint, not a big deal, just wipe it off. But it allows you to really get into little nooks and crannies and areas of the trim that are difficult to get to, especially these areas in here. So you can basically just paint on your protectant and work it in. You might might lose a few bristles along the way. I might be getting a little bit too aggressive with my brush action. These little areas right here, you work the brush with your protectant into those areas. And it gets all of them really nice and coated with a protectant. Again, don't worry about getting it onto the glass. You can wipe it off. But, yep, see little stray brush hairs, not a problem. But you can get into these tight areas that your applicator really does not do a good job of getting into. And just brush on your protectant. So let it sit for a couple of minutes and then go back and wipe it off. It's really nice to work around the windshield wiper area, especially if you have a longer bristle brush, which this is actually pretty long and it gets into those areas really well. And this protectant is really thick, so it does take a little bit of patience to spread that product around. So if you have a more watery one, it will probably work maybe a little bit easier. But again, it's not that big of a deal. The payoff is that this protectant is really good. And you're applying a nice generous amount, so the plastic sucks it right up, and it'll last quite a few months on the trim. So now a little bit of a different method for this trim here. You could tape it off if you want to, or you can just get a little foam block, and I cut it into like a little triangle because you can get into intricate areas. So let's do that. Let's apply the trim protectant. You can kind of mush it in, and then you can use precision and apply the protectant onto the plastics and rubber pieces. Again, a little might get on the paint. Don't freak out, not a problem. Wipes right off. you can get right up tight into these little areas here. So this is kind of a weird piece of trim here. You have this aluminum, and then you have this rubber, and the rubber goes here, and then kind of goes in, and then goes in on the glass, and goes all the way around underneath, and kind of stops underneath the trim here, the aluminum trim. So it's going to transfer onto the glass a little bit, but again, don't worry about that. I'm going to be doing an IPA wipe down on all of the paintwork in just a couple of minutes after I'm done with the trim. But here is a really nice way of applying any type of trim protectant onto kind of difficult to get to rubber pieces here. So again, you can let that sit, and then you can wipe it off in just a moment. Same goes with the roof here. You can be really precise and get that rubber trim. Again, you see a little bit on the paint. Not a big deal. It'll wipe right off. Just to show you that it will wipe off very easily. No problem. And the trim looks great. And the glass looks great. It's easily removed. Not a problem. So now just a light wipe down, a mist of Carpro Pearl. Not Carpro Pearl. Carpro Eraser. Carpro Pearl. So just a light mist is all you need if you've already used the Carpro Essence. Already I can feel the paint is super clean. It's like just dragging just a little bit on the towel, which I don't really like. That's why I'm doing very light mist, light wipe down, because you don't want to induce any more damage. Even though you have a super fluffy towel like this, if you are too aggressive with it, it'll still scratch. It won't scratch. It'll just lightly mar the paint. Something that might only be seen under powerful lights like we have here in the garage. And that's why I have my lights here, just to double check as I go through. And I work in small sections and then flip and make sure to hand polish away any light residual little, not streaking, but you know, you can see the Carpro Eraser evaporating. So you just catch a little bit of that evaporation as it goes and just kind of help it along. So we're going to touch up just a few spots. There's one right there. We're going to touch that up with some black paint, and I resorted to just using a toothpick. I used to use that other little tool, but I found that the paint would dry so quickly in it, especially in the hot temperatures. Maybe in the winter it's a little bit better, but in the hot, you know, summer, it would dry so quickly in that little pen that it would gum up, and it was just driving me nuts. So I resorted to just using a toothpick, and yes, sometimes I will use just the brush that's in here. I've learned to just be very steady and careful with it, and I can hit some areas with just the brush. So let's see how bad that is. It's really not too bad, it's just right there in the corner. So let's see if we can touch that up with the toothpick and or the brush. So make sure to give this thing a good shake. This might, wow, it's really thick. When it's really thick like that, it's kind of difficult to work with. And then it ends up being kind of gummy and stringy. Oh, but this isn't too bad. This I can work with. All right. All right, not bad. But now it's right there. But now at least it's touched up. All right, that looks pretty good.
Next time on Miranda Detailing.
These little rings of glass. Look at that. I put a little bit extra, making sure to not miss anything. Ooh, that was way too much. But check this out. That is unusable.